It's had a very, very big bang.
Silverstone Circuit, the home of British racing, the birthplace of Formula 1, but most importantly, the venue of my second ever car race. And wow, was this a crazy one. Pretty much everything was a first, from my first overtake to my first ever interview, and maybe if you watch till the end, even my first ever top 10 finish. But first, a bit of context. So this year I'm taking part in 3 rounds of the 2025 JSCC season at Brands Hatch, Silverstone and Donington Park. So let's have a 20-second recap of how the season's gone so far. I didn't compete in round 1 at Donington, but it was a really good opportunity to be in and around the team and just learn how everything works. My first race came at round 2 at Brands Hatch, which was an amazing learning experience. I enjoyed it so much, and there's a video you can watch about it right here. Between this and Brands, there was another round at Thruxton. So now we find ourselves at Silverstone National, the 1.6 mile track with 6 corners, 2 to the left and 4 to the right. The lap record is a 47.4 set by Scott Mansell in his Benetton B197. The schedule for this weekend is 4 sessions of testing on Friday, followed by a short practice session and qualifying on Saturday morning. One thing to note, even though this is classed as a triple header, is that after losing a race at Brands Hatch, we've actually got an extra race on Saturday evening. Sunday's where the real action happens, with 3 races spread across the whole day. However, I'm hearing word that we've got quite an interesting weather forecast. So the forecast for all 4 practice sessions on Friday is looking dry and fairly mild. However, for practice on Saturday morning, it's looking dry and fairly mild. Qualifying on Saturday, however, is looking dry but fairly mild. And the first race on Saturday is dry and fairly mild. Fairly mild. Honestly, which idiot was up at 3 in the morning writing this script? So Thursday mainly consisted of finishing off my high intensity sim training, taking a picture with a sign, and setting up the awning. But somehow in amongst all of that action, I did have enough time to record a little snippet for you guys. So we go and set everything up, sign right there with my name on it, so I'm a racing driver. But yeah, set everything up, we're here, we're at the track, and yeah, ready to go for testing tomorrow. I'm super excited. Obviously it's Silverstone, it's the actual Silverstone, and I'm going to be driving it tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that, and I'm very excited. So yeah, see you tomorrow. This is it, Silverstone Circuit. So we'll come out the pit lane onto the exit of Cobb's Corner. We're using the national pit lane instead of the international, and taking it slow as we get our first impression of the circuit. Down the Wellington Straight and towards Brooklands as we come out of Maggots and Beckett's, tipping the car in after braking about halfway down the curb. But wait, what's that? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the first 2 sessions are actually open sessions, which means any closed wheel car can drive in these. So if you ever see me pulling over randomly, it's probably because a Civic's about to fly past. So after a super productive session and a half of learning the circuit, we actually strung a narratable lap together. So we brush up on the exit curb coming out of Woodcote, making all of that space work for us, down towards Cobb's Corner, tiny break at this point in the sessions, we haven't quite got the confidence yet, brush that apex and come all the way out to the exit curb, making sure not to get all 4 wheels over it though. Now coming down towards the famous Maggots and Beckett section, brushing up on this curb, then taking the car all the way along to brake over on this curb here, down into 3rd, tip the car in, hopefully hit that inside curb, which I don't do on this lap, and then bring it out onto that painted bit of tarmac there. Now down onto the Wellington Straight. This really gives you a good appreciation for how fast those F1 cars go. This section is just a tiny little straight on the game, but right here it's a massive straight as we head down towards Brooklands, braking halfway down the curb, slam it down into 3rd, tip the car in, brushing along that apex, getting as close to the grass as possible, then coming all the way out, braking to tip the car through Luffield, getting close to that curb, running along it, then running out wide all the way onto the curb on the exit, shift up into 4th as we approach Woodcote, clip that curb on the inside, which we don't do because I believe there's a car there, come back out onto the outside curb, and that is a lap of Silverstone National. So absolutely beautiful day at Silverstone. Friday testing, we've done the first 2 sessions, and we got the second 2, possibly 3 after lunch. It's going really well. Obviously, those first 2 sessions were basically like just a test day. So it's multi-class. We had the Civics and some of the classic cars in with me. So there was all that blasting past me constantly, which is good because that's got me to use my mirrors. But yeah, it's been super good to have that kind of advantage because a lot of the drivers didn't do those first 2 sessions. But we've got the 2 junior sessions coming up now, so we'll have all of the drivers that are in the same cars as me for a change, and we'll see where we are. Aside from that, it's going really, really well, and yeah, I'll see you afterwards. So after bedding in the brakes and scrubbing in the tyres for the races tomorrow, my coach Les jumped out the car, and we really started cutting down the lap times. One of the best indicators of my level of progress throughout the weekend is how much I'm braking or not braking at Cops. It's a much less daunting corner than you think. Well, less daunting until you actually arrive there. Then there are 3 different attitudes. Brake and see where you end up, lift and see where you end up, or hold it flat and see where you end up. The middle of those is often the best option. But to see my own replay, going from a massive brake on the first session all the way to a tiny lift on the last one, was a really good indication of the amount of progress we made today. So on that amazing note, it was time to get ready for Saturday. So bright and early on Saturday morning, we had our last practice session of the weekend. If you didn't know, having testing on a Saturday is quite rare. It's normally just Friday. But on the unique occasion it does happen, it's more for getting your eye in than cutting down your times. And that's what we did, with this session proving super productive. So now there was only one more thing to do before the real racing started. So after aura farming for about 2 hours and getting every angle of the car that exists, it was time to hit the track for quali. So here we go then, out of the assembly area in towards Luffield. Pretty much any qualifying session consists of 3 main parts. 1, warm your car up. 2, put in some safe laps just to make sure if your times get deleted you don't end up last. And 3...
Oh, that's not that big at all.
So with the car all nice and warm and the first few banker laps out the way, it was time to see our real pace. We actually put together a few amazing laps, meaning that I was able to set a 1:14.9, putting me P14 for all 3 races. This was really good, a huge improvement again from testing, but we knew there was more time to find. So this is it, the moment I've been preparing for a month and dreaming of for 14 years. My first race at Silverstone. Normally the green flag lap is full of overthinking, constant different scenarios about what's going to happen when you reach turn 1. But this was a blur. I genuinely don't even remember it. It went round so quickly. All I could really do is park up on my grid slot and just get ready for the lights. So the revs rise and we dump the clutch for our first race at Silverstone Circuit. Tom Algar gets an amazing start, threading in between Joe Wood and Sherry and Powell. We're going to duck to the outside to see if we can have a go at anyone in front of us. But you can see Ollie Kerr there on the inside. He's slowed down a little bit, so we're going to be a bit uncertain going into the first corner. That's going to lose us a little bit of time. You can see the gap beginning to open up between myself and the cars in front. We're going to try and close that down as soon as possible, but Tom Algar is having a flyer of a first lap right on the back of Joe Wood. But so far, everyone's made it round safely for the first lap of Silverstone. Now I can tell some of the keyboard warriors have already commented asking why I started 17th instead of the P14 that I qualified. Now this is because this race isn't actually technically part of this weekend. It was a race that was postponed due to barrier damage at Brands Hatch, meaning that the qualifying order is that of that weekend. So after that slight off-track excursion, we were really reeling in Tom Algar, and by the halfway point of the race, we were right on his bumper. I could just smell my first ever overtake, but I was having to work for it. So we get a better exit out of Maggots and Beckett's. We're going to catch the slipstream, take it to the outside going into Brooklands. He's going to hold the inside, we'll brake halfway down the curb, down to 3rd. He's going to send it very, very tight into the corner, so we'll see if the switchback's possible. It's not quite on, we've sort of overslowed the car, but we are going to get a very, very good run out of this corner and onto the main straight. So on that main straight, we're getting closer still. We're going to duck to the inside of Cops, but we'll think better of it and duck back behind him. He's going to go very, very tight into the corner. He knows we're here now. He's under quite a bit of pressure, and he's going to take that corner very wide once again. We're going to have a much better run going in and coming out of Maggots and Beckett's to see if we can get another move done going into Brooklands. We do pick up the slipstream, but once again, Tom Algar's making that car very, very wide and sending us to the outside. We've bottled him up on the inside, so we'd only have to wait another corner before we get an amazing run out of Luffield down towards Woodcote. He's going to pull to the outside. We'll get him on the inside. We'll power past, and just like that, it's our first ever overtake in a car race. And what better place to do it than on the main straight at Silverstone? The question now would be, could we hold on to it? And by the end of the race, we'd answered that question with a firm 3-second gap, coming home in P14. You can see just how much it means to me to get that first proper overtake.
Oh, I did a thing.
And with an extremely positive day done here at Silverstone, it was time for Sunday. Our first race was early on Sunday morning, and now the conditions had changed quite a bit. Instead of being boiling hot and having to open the vents on lap 1, it was pretty cold. And this change in conditions meant we had to work a lot harder on the formation lap to warm the tyres up. But still on the formation lap, we were thinking of every single scenario that might happen at turn 1. But when we actually got there, it was very different to how we imagined. So here we go then. The 5-second board is shown for our first race of Sunday here at Silverstone. The lights are up, the revs rise, and we release the clutch. It's not a terrible start, but it's not a perfect one. You can see Sherry Ann gets a much better one. She's going to slip down the inside, followed by Tom Algar, so we'll lose a couple places, but it's a cold track, it's a cold day. We're going to be a bit careful going into the first corner, staying on the outside line there. And there's contact further up. They're sideways and they're going to get collected by Leon Holly. We're going to stay on the outside, try and avoid any damage if possible. We'll thread through in between them. And luckily we've not picked up any damage. I can tell you right now both drivers are uninjured, but unfortunately it means both of their races will be over. Luckily Joe Wood made it out of there with fairly minimal damage. So safety car will be out then, and that's the confirmation there. The safety car has been called to neutralise this race. You can see the impact a cold track and cold tyres makes when I come through Maggots and Beckett's here. Obviously I know it's going to be a safety car because of what we just seen, so I'm not pushing at all, but even then we get a huge snap of oversteer. Luckily it's a front wheel drive car and we're able to catch it, but it just gives you an example. So we're caught up to the safety car queue there, but as soon as it started, the safety car restart is upon us. They're going to catch us snapping a little bit coming out of Luffield, but even as soon as Maggots and Beckett's, we've already started to reel in Tom Algar and begin another challenge for that top 10 finish. So after a couple laps behind Tom Algar, it's time to go for a move similarly to how we did in the first race. We go to the inside, but it's a dummy move. We pin him on the inside of Brooklands down into third. He gets a much worse line because he's pinned on the inside line. So out of Luffield, we're going to get a mega run on that blue and orange car, collecting the draft as we come into Woodcote as well, up into fourth gear. You can see us really picking up speed now. We're going to duck to the inside. It's side by side. The move's done before we even get to Copse Corner, but we're still technically side by side into Copse, and that is the move done. So up into P11. The remaining few laps of this race weren't that eventful, and we brought it home a solid P11. So after that amazing result, it was time for race 2. But before that, there was actually one part of Saturday which I left out of this video, my first ever interview. This was an incredible milestone as it's something I'd been preparing for quite a bit in the background. I'm not going to show the whole interview here, but if you want to watch it, which I really suggest you do, you can watch this video here. My interview went super well, with Jack even saying this at the end.
I just want to point out, he's 14, and that's probably the best interview I've had all day. Well done to you, young man.
So with another first ticked off, it was time for race 2. 3, actually. So coming off the back of a really competitive first race of the day, we wanted this top 10. But this race would be a good lesson in not getting ahead of yourself, as it would be a bit of a reality check. At least as close as reality can get when you're driving a race car at Silverstone. So for the third time here at Silverstone, the 5-second board showing the lights are up, the revs rise, and we release the clutch. The lights weren't on for very long, but it's not caught us snapping at all. We've got a really, really good start. We're going to duck over to the inside, but just as it was all going so well, we fumbled the shift into third, and that's cost us a ton of time, letting not only Joe Wood through, but Tom Algar as well. So we've dropped 2 places now, all because of that one fumbled shift on the start. But now we're straight back on the horse and chasing down Tom Algar, as we pretty much have been this whole weekend. Except this time we'd make the move a lot sooner. It's down the main straight. We're going to have a look into Copse. It's just a dummy move to make sure he knows that we're here, but it means he'll have a little wobble going through the first corner. Nothing major though. We will have the slipstream going into Maggots and Beckett, so can we try something? We're not quite close enough, but we are going to make another little dummy move just to make sure he knows we're there. And now he's braking very, very late into the corner, and that little dummy move has made him completely overshoot the apex. So we're going to have a much, much better run down the Wellington straight. We've caught the slipstream as well, but just waiting, and now we're going to pull to the inside, but this time Unlike the first two races, it's not a dummy move, it's as real gets, and we're going to slide it down the inside into Brooklands. So that's one place regained, and now it's time to chase down Joe Wood. However, by the last few laps, it became evident that barring any last minute dive bombs, we weren't going to be able to get past Joe. So we had to settle for the same place we started, P13. But wait just a second. There's a bit of a big gap in the timetable between this race and the last race, and we hadn't done anything stupid all weekend. So, yeah, you guessed it, it was time to lose my phone behind one of the guardrails. Cue a good half an hour of me and my videographer attempting to get my phone out from behind this fence, using all sorts of different utensils we found on the ground. Obviously, it could have been solved in 30 seconds by asking a marshal, but my ego couldn't take that, and eventually we did get it back. I have got my phone back. Let's have a look at our utensils. We've got a bunch of cable ties, a little metal bit that we found inside a tyre, and a little rubber bit and a rock. And we've retrieved it, so successful, finally. So with my phone back in one piece, it was time for our final race at Silverstone. The weekend's gone by so quickly and I've enjoyed it so much. But it's not over yet. We've got one more chance to try and get this top 10 finish. But there'd be a few obstacles in our way. The main one being that unfortunately Joe Wood isn't racing. So there'd be a vacant row in front of us, where Joe and Leon should be. In theory, this is a good thing as it gives me a free run to the cars in front. But it also gives them a good opportunity to build a gap on me off the start. This was the first race that this had happened with both cars in front of me. So we had no idea what would happen. And there was only one way to tell. So here we go then, the sun has come out for our final race here at Silverstone, and so has the 5-second board. The lights are up, the revs rise, and the clutch is released. It's a good start. It's not a perfect one, but it's a good start. We don't fumble the shift into second. We don't fumble the shift into third. It is a very good start, and we're going to now start gaining on Matthew Swatton in front, but Tom Alger is trying to launch an attack on the outside of Cobb's corner. We're going to be able to hold him off, and now it's time to start trying to chip away at that gap in front. So 2 laps in, and we're chipping away the gap in front, but we're going to have to close it up faster if we want to overtake the person in front of him. It was about 3/4 of the way into the race that we realised if something drastic didn't happen, we weren't going to get this top 10 finish. I wasn't catching him fast enough to get past and then overtake the car in front, but just a lap later, something drastic happened. Unfortunately, my teammate Martin had an issue with his car, causing him to have to retire, which was a real shame, but it now meant we only had to overtake the car in front to get the top 10, and it was now looking just about on, so we started to push. Over the next few laps, we took chunks out of that gap, until with 4 laps to go, we were on his bumper. We'd get our first real look here on the Wellington straight, just 3 laps from the end. He's going to move right, he's going to move left. We're not going to be close enough for a move, we're definitely close enough to try and pressure him. However, Matthew Swatton is not one to be easily pressured, so he's not going to be too affected by this. We've not pinned him on the inside too much, so our next opportunity is going to be going down the main straight towards Cobb's corner. And sure enough, we have the same slipstream game going down the main straight, but still not close enough to make a move. So after rounding the first corner on the final lap, we are pushing as hard as we can, and going into Magnus and Beckett's, it's looking like on the better line we could have a chance, but unfortunately that better line never really translated into a better run down the straight, and despite picking up the slipstream in another draft game, we just weren't close enough to have a go into Brooklands. So this was it, the final 2 corners. We're not quite close enough to try and have a go into the right of Luffield. Our only option now is to try and get a better run out of the corner and through Woodcote, but with his line, he's got that covered off as well. It's not quite looking possible, and when the dust settled, we came across the line P11. For about 5 seconds I was really frustrated, and as I rounded Cobb's corner in a racing car on the same circuit that F1 races at year after year, I remembered something. Just how incredible all of this was. Setting aside the whole thing of racing at Silverstone in a car for a second, but at my second race, being able to compete at the level for top 10s. And not just that, how far we came from testing. Going all the way from timidly rounding each corner, to blasting through them and setting nearly 113s. But most important of all, I've just enjoyed this so much. And as I got out of the car, I could only think of one thing. Thank you so much to everyone that made this possible.